Every week, I watch people do everything completely right with their money. They save diligently, they avoid reckless debt, they clip coupons, they live well below their means, and they pride themselves on making safe, conservative choices. And somehow, 10 years later, they look at their bank accounts and realize they have almost nothing to show for it. They are exhausted, they are frustrated, and they are falling behind. This happens not because they were irresponsible. In fact, it is the exact opposite. They are falling behind because 4 pieces of advice they followed, word for word advice that was likely handed down by their parents, their teachers, and society at large, were fundamentally wrong from the start. Today, we are looking at the massive, uncomfortable gap between what feels financially responsible and what actually builds wealth. It is a harsh reality, but doing the right thing with your money is often a fast track to losing. We are going to break down the 4 most common phrases people say about money. These are beliefs that sound incredibly mature, but are quietly acting as an invisible anchor on your financial life. Let's dismantle these myths, one by one. Phrase 1, I'll start investing when I make more money. This is, without a doubt, the most common lie we tell ourselves about wealth. It sounds deeply logical. When you are stretched thin, when rent takes up half your paycheck, and when a trip to the grocery store feels like a luxury expense, investing feels like a game reserved entirely for the rich. You tell yourself that once you get that promotion, once you clear the 6-figure mark, or once things settle down, you will finally open that brokerage account. I completely understand that feeling. The instinct to secure your immediate survival before looking decades into the future is a basic human survival mechanism. But grounding ourselves in reality means looking at the ruthless mathematics of how wealth is actually generated. When you say, I will wait until I make more, you are assuming that the primary ingredient in building wealth is your income. It is not. The primary ingredient in building wealth is time. Waiting is the single most expensive mistake you can make, because every year you wait, you are bleeding compound growth. Compound interest is simply the concept of your money making money, and then that new money making even more money. It is a snowball rolling down a hill, gathering mass. But that snowball needs a long runway. Let's look at the actual numbers. Suppose you are 22 years old. Money is incredibly tight, but you manage to scrape together just $50 a month to invest in a standard S&P 500 index fund. $50 is a dinner out. It is a couple of streaming subscriptions. It is a tiny, almost imperceptible amount of money to part with. But because you start at 22, that $50 has 4 decades to compound before retirement. Now look at someone who waited. They told themselves they would invest when they were ready and had a real salary. They start at age 35. To catch up to the person who started at 22, they cannot just invest $50 a month. They cannot even invest $100 a month. To match that same trajectory, they often have to invest $500 or more every single month. Even $50 a month at age 22 absolutely crushes $500 a month at age 35. The smarter move is to entirely decouple the act of investing from the amount you earn. You do not need to be rich to invest. You need to invest to become rich. Open the account today. Put in $10. Put in $20. The dollar amount right now is irrelevant compared to the behavioral habit you are building and the clock you are starting. You are buying time. And time is the one asset you can never work harder to earn back. Phrase 2, my savings account keeps my money safe. This belief is deeply rooted in our psychology. We are taught that risk is bad and safety is good. When you look at your traditional savings account at a big national bank, you see a number that never goes down. It feels incredibly secure. You can log into your app, see your balance, and sleep soundly knowing your money is sitting in a digital vault, immune to the wild swings of the stock market. I told my mom to move her money out of a savings account, and she looked at me like I insulted her. This is exactly why, for generations, the traditional bank was the ultimate symbol of security. But here is the candid truth that banks do not want you to realize. Your traditional savings account is not a vault. It is a leaky bucket. While the absolute number in your account might not go down, the value of that number is bleeding out every single day due to the silent thief of inflation. Inflation is the gradual increase in the price of goods and services over time. If your bank is paying you 0.01% in interest, which is the standard rate at many massive brick and mortar banks, and inflation is running at 3%, 4%, or even higher, you are mathematically losing money every single day. You are paying a massive, invisible premium for the illusion of safety. You aren't avoiding risk. You are just choosing the absolute certainty of a slow loss over the temporary volatility of potential growth. So, what is the smarter move? You need your money to work while you sleep. If you are keeping cash for an emergency fund or a short-term goal like a house down payment, it absolutely should not be in the stock market. But it also shouldn't be dying in a traditional savings account. You need to shift that capital into a high-yield savings account, HYSA, or look into I-bonds. High-yield savings accounts are typically offered by online banks. Because they do not have the massive overhead costs of physical branches on every street corner, they pass those savings on to you in the form of significantly higher interest rates. Instead of earning pennies a year, you could be earning a rate that actually helps pace or beat baseline inflation. I-bonds, or Series I savings bonds, are another incredible tool backed by the US government, specifically designed to protect your money from losing its purchasing power. Moving your money is an act of financial defense. Stop letting the banks lend out your deposits to make themselves wealthy while throwing you pennies in return. Demand that your cash earns its keep. Phrase 3, I need to pay off all my debt first. If there is one phrase that sounds like the pinnacle of financial responsibility, it is this one. Debt carries an enormous emotional weight. It feels like chains. It feels like a dark cloud hanging over your future. The psychological win of seeing a balance hit zero is intoxicating. Personal finance gurus have built massive empires, screaming from stages that you must eat rice and beans, sell everything you own, and pay off every single dime of debt before you do anything else with your life. Validating that emotional desire to be debt-free is important. Being completely out of debt feels amazing. But we are not here to talk about what feels good. We are here to talk about what actually builds wealth. And mathematically, treating all debt as an absolute emergency is quietly keeping you broke. The misconception here is failing to understand the difference between toxic debt and leverage and ignoring the massive concept of opportunity cost. If you have credit card debt with a 24% interest rate, that is a financial emergency. That is a house on fire. You absolutely must attack that debt with everything you have, because no safe investment on earth is going to reliably return more than 24% year after year. But what if you have a student loan at 4%? What if you have a mortgage locked in at 3.5% or an auto loan at 5%? If you take all of your extra cash and aggressively throw it at a 4% student loan, you are essentially guaranteeing yourself a 4% return on your money. That sounds responsible, but what is the opportunity cost? The opportunity cost is the money you could have made if you deployed that capital elsewhere. Historically, the stock market returns an average of 8% to 10% per year over the long term. If you're rushing to pay off a 4% loan instead of investing, you are voluntarily sacrificing the spread between those two numbers. You are giving up 4% to 6% of compounding growth every single year just to satisfy the emotional itch of being debt-free sooner. Furthermore, inflation actually works in your favor when you hold low-interest, fixed-rate debt. If your mortgage payment is fixed, but inflation drives your wages up over the next 10 years, your debt actually becomes fundamentally cheaper to pay off over time. The smarter move requires emotional discipline. It requires sitting in the discomfort of having a manageable, low-interest liability while you route your surplus cash into assets that outpace the cost of that debt. Pay the minimums on your cheap debt and funnel the rest into the market. You are not being irresponsible. You are playing the spread like a bank does. You are using leverage to accelerate your net worth instead of crippling your future growth to appease your anxiety. Phrase 4, I can't afford to max my 401k. When you get a new job, HR hands you a massive packet of paperwork, and buried in there is the retirement contribution form. You look at your salary, you look at your living expenses and you make a quick, panicked calculation. The idea of voluntarily giving up 10%, 15%, or 20% of your paycheck before it even hits your bank account seems impossible. I have rent, I have gas, I have groceries. I can barely afford my life right now. I definitely cannot afford to max out my 401k. This feeling of scarcity is entirely valid. The sticker shock of a reduced paycheck is real. But this belief is a financial trap that stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of how the tax code works and what employer matches actually are. First, let's address the illusion of the vanishing paycheck. Traditional 401k contributions are made pre-tax. This means the money is pulled from your gross income before the government takes its cut. When you say you can't afford to put $500 a month into your 401k, you are assuming your take-home pay will drop by exactly $500. It won't. Because you are lowering your taxable income, you are going to pay less in taxes right now. A $500 contribution might only reduce your actual take-home paycheck by $350 or $400. The government is essentially subsidizing a portion of your retirement savings. Second, and far more critical, is the employer match. Many people view the 401k match as a nice little bonus to think about later. That is a devastating reframing. An employer match is not a perk. It is part of your total compensation package. If your employer offers to match your contributions up to 5%, and you choose not to contribute that 5% because things are tight, you are voluntarily taking a massive pay cut. You are leaving free money on the table. Where else in the world can you get a guaranteed, instantaneous 100% return on your investment? If you put in $100 and your company matches it with $100, you have doubled your money with absolutely zero market risk. To pass that up because you want a slightly larger paycheck today is the ultimate definition of stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. The smarter move here is a psychological adjustment. You cannot afford not to utilize these accounts. If maxing out the absolute federal limit, which is tens of thousands of dollars, is truly mathematically impossible for your current salary, that is fine, but you must, at the bare minimum, contribute exactly enough to capture every single penny of your employer match. If you are worried about your budget, here is the harsh reality. Humans are incredibly adaptable creatures. Look at Parkinson's law, which states that work expands to fill the time allotted for it. The financial equivalent is that expenses expand to fill the income available. If you have the money in your checking account, you will find a way to spend it. If you automate your 401k contributions so the money never hits your checking account in the first place, you will adapt. You will figure out how to live on the remainder, and in a month, you won't even miss it. We have to stop equating financial comfort with financial growth. Doing what feels safe is often the exact mechanism keeping you stagnant. Waiting for the perfect high-income moment to invest is an excuse that robs you of your most powerful weapon, compound time. Hiding your money in a traditional savings account to avoid volatility is guaranteeing that your wealth will be slowly eaten alive by inflation. Obsessing over paying down cheap, low-interest debt might soothe your anxiety, but it destroys your ability to leverage the stock market's historical returns. And treating your 401k as an optional luxury instead of a mandatory wealth-building vehicle means you are handing free money back to your boss and voluntarily paying higher taxes. True financial responsibility is not about hoarding your money in a bunker. It is not about defensive maneuvers. True financial responsibility is about going on the offensive. It is about understanding the rules of the game. It is about recognizing that inflation, compound interest, opportunity cost, and taxes are all moving pieces on the board. You can either let these forces work against you while you pat yourself on the back for being safe, or you can actively position your money so these forces do the heavy lifting for you. If you recognize yourself in any of these four phrases, do not panic. Do not beat yourself up. You were operating on outdated software. If this video gave you a clearer way to think about money, subscribe for more no-nonsense wealth strategies, and leave a comment with the phrase that used to trip you up the most. You are playing by a set of rules that haven't worked in decades. The cognitive dissonance of doing everything right and still feeling broke is incredibly frustrating, but now you know exactly why it is happening. The fix starts today. Move your cash out of that dead savings account. Set up a $50 auto transfer to an index fund. Check your employer match tomorrow morning. Stop playing defense. Start building wealth. If this breakdown helped you rethink your money habits, share this video to others so that they can get a straight talk personal finance, and comment below with the one phrase you use to believe the longest.